I've been asked more than a few times for an intake manifold removal, possibly installation, possibly valve cleaning. Well, guess what? I've done a bunch with the plastic intake manifold, but this is the flex fuel engine. 2.0T TFSI turbocharged direct injected flex fuel. Well, I'm not a fan, but we'll get into that in a different video. Yeah, I like the engine, I just don't like the flex fuel. I don't like corn gas. It helps some people, but I'm not gonna get into it right now. Let's get started. Naptown Tuner, by the way. How's it going? How's it been? I'm shooting myself in the foot by making so many videos and putting out so much so fast. But I've got so much, so I gotta put it out. And I'm only putting out a quarter of what I could be putting out. So you best catch up. And I just quickly did that. What I did right there was I pulled up on this edge and I pulled up on this edge. I'm using one hand. I might have been able to do it better with both hands. I might have been able to pull up with both hands right here in the front. The thing is, this right here is a big long plastic emblem and it only has a couple tacks in it, right? And this is an engine cover that gets hot and cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. Remember, heat cycles. And if you pull this off crooked, if you haphazardly just twist this thing, right? This whole thing can twist and it can pop this emblem off. This emblem is already known for coming off easily, and you don't want to be the person that pops it off. So carefully pull the cover off like this, and then try not to twist it whatsoever. When you pull this cover off, you'll notice the 4 points. We got one right here, one right here, one right here, and one right here. You want to flip this cover over, and you want to make sure that all the grommets are still in place, because if they're not, you could have some vibration noise. This thing could rattle on top of the engine and things of that nature. So now that that preliminary is over, the next one is, remember, this video is all about this updated aluminum intake manifold on this flex fuel. They had to redesign this intake manifold to adapt for the more corrosive style fuel. These claw grabby dealies is kind of fun to have. You know, you can take off the oil filter with minimal damage, and you don't have to own all those little individual cups, if you know what I'm talking about, that are supposed to fit the very top. So you'll just grip it right here and spin it loose, and usually all it takes is just that first initial 1/8 of a turn, and then you can get it the rest of the way by hand. But this is going to obstruct us from removing that manifold, so we got to go ahead and zip this off. Plus it'll give us some extra room, but let's go ahead and put something over that. We don't just want to keep that exposed. This was just ever so lightly used, and I'm just going to tuck this. It's one of those blue shop towels. They're like paper towels, only they're like more legit, you know? So I'm just gonna tuck this in like a preliminary fashion. Now, what are we gonna do? Let's go ahead and clean up some of these connectors and this is a 7mm or a flathead screwdriver. Since flathead screwdrivers were invented by the devil, we're gonna get a 7mm. Sometimes I prefer to just take this one side off of the throttle body. So you got to get it a good full 4 turn. It's on there pretty tight. You got to get it on there like 4 or 5 full turns. And if you'll notice in my particular case right here, we've got a kerfuffle. So we got to tighten this screw clamp back in. This, what's happening is it's trying to unscrew the screw rather than unscrew the clamp. And what you have to do in that situation is just go ahead and tighten the clamp back up pretty much all the way right there. And now, whenever you unscrew it, you gotta push your hand into it. You gotta have a hefty girth and momentum in the swing. And then you see It's extracting, but I softened up there at the end, see, and started unscrewing the screw again. So you can't soften up on it. You have to keep the swing strong and true all the way through. So now that we got through that situation without destroying the clamp, you know, we can just tighten it right back up now. We're gonna take this, and you know, we're gonna be careful with this right here. We're gonna talk about this. Let's talk about this real quick. Here's a lesson, little one. If you didn't know, Audi is very, very well known for having plastic pieces underneath the engine bonnet in the engine room that if you simply touch them, they break and disintegrate into little pieces. Let me show you. This is one of those pieces. This right here is the bleeder pipe. It is the hottest pipe, because this top pipe right here is the push hose. The cooling then comes through the bottom hose. So this naturally being the bleeder hose on the hot side, it gets very, very brittle in the end. I did not think to keep it to show you at the time, but I do have new ones that I ordered. This end piece right here, my friends, gets very brittle, if you can imagine, and all you have to do is bump it. Chances are it's not going to break unless something bumps it. But when these have over 10 years of age and over 100,000 miles, I would say be more worried about it if it has more than 150,000 miles, but still be cautious about this, my friends. I'm passing it on to you. I now am very cautious about this hot side bleeder hose. That is all. Back to the regular scheduled programming. So sometimes I don't take this hose all the way out. I just simply tuck it back in here like this. Of course you don't want to get anything in there. No debris, no dropping any sockets, not like a socket's gonna work it. Anyway, let's go with our connectors now. We have some electrical connectors. This one right here, you see all you have to do on this one is push a tab down and pull it straight back. On these tabs and on these connectors, remember, you simply push it down, but a lot of times you need to push the connector in and push the tab down and then wiggle it and pull it back. It just needs the special touch. Then we need to pull this off right here, and then we have another connector right here for the throttle body. We'll give it one more go, and you see it's being stubborn, so you really have to push harder. And the connectors are troublesome sometimes. You just have to get used to them and then get a feel for them, and then you just touch it and then pull it off. It's hard to explain, but when you got the magic touch, you know, you just roll with it. So this one right here, we got some situations, so let's just wait for this and get some more electrical connectors off. This one here has a safety tab, so we'll just pull that safety tab back and then straight back. This one here, while we're at it, we're gonna go ahead and just pull it down right here and get it out of the way. And then right there, we're just gonna get it right out of the way right there. We have this right here. This is just a little breather hose. We can go ahead and pop it off right here. Let's go ahead and get this electrical connector right here for what's this? Well, we have two different fuel sensors. Since this is flex fuel, this is a fuel quality sensor. It senses how much E85 versus how much gasoline mixture ratio, and it does some crazy number crunches in the ECU box, and then it builds an algorithm and amalgamates it, and then witchcraft happens through the turbocharger, and then power goes through Quattro. Now we have some other connectors here down here. Knock sensor, remember, that's the green wire. And then these two down here, they're just intake manifold 1, intake manifold 2 wiring connectors. That's just a poor excuse for me not knowing exactly what they go to. This right here, my friends, we call this the N80 purge valve. This is the canister purge valve for the fuel tank. Now, I talked about this sensor, but I didn't disconnect it yet. So we disconnect it. Let's go ahead and get this fuel pump disconnected now. Fuel pump, oh, when I mentioned this fuel sensor, remember there's another fuel sensor that all of these have down on the fuel rail. And do you see that bit of orange? That is your other fuel sensor right there. And that is just your high pressure fuel sensor. And then, you know, you have a built-in fuel pressure pump deal right here. We'll talk about all that. We can't get too off track. Remember, we gotta brush through this thing. We're building a long video already. Now, what I'm gonna go ahead and prefer to do is proceed like this. I just prefer to, you push this in, you push this back, and then you can kind of wiggle, and then, that's surprising. I was expecting a little bit more fuel pressure than that, but I wonder if there's a slightly leaky injector. That wouldn't be no good. This thing has been sitting for about 3 days. So what I'm doing right here, and I wasn't giving you a very good view, was pulling this low pressure fuel line out of the way. I'm just pulling it out of its grommets, and this is just gonna, I prefer to, it's gotta be either disconnected here or here. Sometimes these spring clamps can get squirrely, and then if you know, they're really technically, in my opinion, best to only be used once, but whenever it has to do with fuel, I prefer not to take them out if I don't have to. Now, it comes off pretty easy right here, and I have the proper tool to take it off, so, and usually the fuel pressure helps you take it off right there anyway, so follow me. We simply take the good old Knipex spring pliers, and it just effortlessly rolls back the clamp, saves it, and then we take our panel tool behind it here, and all I have to do is squeeze. And second time's a charm. What you really want to do is make sure that you don't damage that hose in any way. While you're here, take this connector off the high pressure fuel pump, and we'll just take this fuel quality sensor connector, and we'll pull these through back here. Drop this on the other side and continue to pull them. Where am I? We'll get it eventually. Got that wrench sitting there primed to take that nut off the high pressure fuel pump. Better not knock it off into the engine bay, get lost forever. But let's pull the Knipex pliers back out and get this spring clip right here. We need to get it more than that. We pretty much need to get it touching that other clamp, because that's a pretty long nipple on that. Some kind of filter, I believe. And then we'll get our panel tool back out. We'll just try to squeeze it right in there. It's a tight fit. One shot right there. And then I like to pop this out. We'll just push that out. But the thing that you have to pop out is this vacuum hose right here. Now let me get you a better view on this. This hose right, we're gonna get a view right there. You see, it's this top hose. All you have to do is put your finger behind it here and just pull it. You hear the vacuum release? You just pull it straight back. And then we'll just keep this whole thing to the side right here. Now we have more room to get to this nut. That's a 17mm nut right here. And we'll bust that loose. And while the camera's there, and just see, I'll flip it around right here, and then we'll flip it around one more time. But that's not all. That's not the only one. There's one more. Since this is a flex fuel manifold, we got one more nut and a bolt we got to loosen on this style manifold. So now let's go ahead and, oh, there's that wrench we were talking about. Trying to get lost forever. Do you see it? Let's skip real quick because I feel like doing this. Do you have to take this whole breather off? Yeah, it's the old style breather. Do you have to take this whole breather off to get this little union out? No, you don't. You really don't. You can squeeze this here and give it a nice little tug, and see how I pulled it back. And then you're gonna kind of, this is where it's tricky, but this is the hard part. This is the hard part. Is it worth the fight? The struggle is real with this one. I guess we gotta stink and loosen it up. Well, what'd you look at that? I got a dang whole thing out. Well, let's go ahead and pull this out too so you can take a look at it. This is kind of like one of those water pump unions down there in yonder, except it's longer. So we'll go ahead and just put these back together and keep them together and put them to the side. One thing I like about having that paper towel over there covering that oil filter housing is this nice little cleanup towel right there from time to time. Back to this fuel line right here. We got this T30 over here. We got to take this T30 out right here. Do you see where I got that gun right there? And then you don't want to lose it, so we do like this and we pull it right out. And now we got another one on the bottom side. We're going to go ahead and get it. Despite us taking a lot of stuff off apart already up top there, we still got a mess, a heap of stuff right down here, but really it's not all that complicated. Let's go ahead and just take this out of the way right here. We got our T30. We'll go ahead and zip this out right here. Now let's bend this out of the way. That's just a coolant line. You see, there is too much in the way for me to show you with my camera, so you don't necessarily have to take this throttle body off. You can if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it because it ain't that hard, and you don't even need to replace the gasket once you put it back on. You can put it back on with the same old gasket. And some people are gonna complain about that. They're gonna say I'm wrong, but if you think you right, trust me. We just got 4 T30s all the way around this thing. But we don't want to lose them. That bit just went all the way down on the ground. Luckily, I heard it hit the ground. When it doesn't hit the ground, that's when bad things are happening. I went ahead and used both hands to get that last one out, but the throttle body is just gonna pop right off and you're just gonna have a gasket that looks like this. Now on the plastic manifolds, it's gonna be more like a rubber gasket. So replace this if you want. Having picked up cars from all over the nation, I'm just gonna tell you it's probably about 50-50 if this bracket's still gonna be in place or not, but there's typically an aluminum support bracket that fits right here. It's very easy to take off. The top of this bracket right here, you're just gonna find a 13mm nut. On the bottom of the bracket, you're gonna find a 10mm triple square, and then it simply pulls right out. Once you pull that bracket out, and I might in the future do a torture test on these intake manifolds and stand on it and jump on it and see if it's possible to break it without the support on there. Initially, I would say that the support is a lot more important on this aluminum manifold because it's a lot more, even though it's aluminum, and aluminum is a lot lighter of a metal, it's still a lot heavier than the plastic manifold of the previous generation. So I would say it's a lot more important to put the mount back in on this one, but this one also has no deflection if you push down, and the plastic one honestly has a little bit of deflection, so I think the mounting is a little bit better on this one. So it's neither here nor there, and I haven't seen any problems whatsoever. I haven't seen any stress on any intake manifolds whatsoever, but I always suggest to put everything back together like the factory had it in most cases. It's like, you know. Let me go ahead and cover this real quick. This right here is the alternator. Typically, the alternator has a little plastic cover over the hot wire, right? That nut right there is hot at all times. On the back of the alternator, that always has a power supply wire that's, when I say hot, I mean it's energized by 12 volts. Now, if you do not disconnect the power up here at the bulkhead, underneath this, we have a little tray, and what you would typically want to do is disconnect this. All three of those wires, disconnect them. Sometimes I'm a risk taker, actually most of the time, and I don't. Now, if you were to drop a tool, or for instance, even this bracket, if it was to clumsily come out of your hands and arc from that nut to, for instance, that AC line right there, it'd blow a big old fat hole in your AC line and go. So you need to be pretty careful about that power line, and you don't want to short it out because you could fry your wiring. This is your cold start injector. E85 is so lame that it's not even really flammable enough to start your engine whenever it's cold. It's really resistant to knock though. It has a lot of octane. It's not violently explosive though. It does a lot better under compression. E85 is like what, 110 octane, 115 octane? Someone tell me exactly what it is. A lot of people think that E85 is 85 octane. It's not. We'll do an E85 video later, and we'll talk about different fuels and what's acceptable to run in your gas non-flex fuel car as well. We have a coolant temp sensor down there. Do you see that red trigger that my finger is pointing to? We gotta take a pick and pull that trigger back, and then we can pull it off. And then sometimes, if I get extra cheeky, I go for the full, you know, I'm not really worried about that safety clip anyway, but sometimes it pulls the whole connector out for me. And if it doesn't, this one is in there pretty good. You have to stick your finger way down in there and kind of, see how I pulled it out? We're getting pretty close. We have this fuel nut. Remember I was telling you there's one on the bottom. It's this one right here. We don't have to worry about these two lines, but that line that's sneaking behind there, see? Now this one's gonna be really hard to show you with the camera, but I'm gonna try to sneak it in here and zoom. It's this nut right here. So you don't have very much swing when you get the wrench in there. If you want to, you can take these two out right here. I believe it's a 5mm Allen or a T30. Either one will get it. But if you can get your, maybe a stubby wrench or your full-size wrench in there, simply, let me see if I can, well, give me one more second. There we go. And then, is that enough? I'd like to have one more. but you really pretty much have to get it from the bottom. Let me see if that was enough. So all I had to do is break it loose, and then I can get underneath here and just take my thumb and my finger and roll it loose the rest of the way. And then if you'll notice, hear it, see it? This line right here is completely independent now. This is your evap line that goes to the turbo. Let's go ahead and just pinch this. You see how it's just got squeezed clip? You pinch it and pull it back. Try not to break it, right? Last thing to do is just simply unbolt it. Let's unbolt it. We have two 10 millimeters on the sides here, right here and all the way on the other side, straight back in the dark abyss. Have I showed this tip yet? It works a lot better when installing it. I don't worry so much about whenever I'm taking these nuts out, but sometimes whenever it's recessed way down in there, I like to take my socket and, you know, these are just some rag scraps. I think paper probably works the best, but you can just kind of tuck it in here real quick, kind of like you're loading a muzzle. And then you stick it down there on your nut. And if you'll notice, it gives it a nice little snug fit, like your socket is cuddling a teddy bear. And then, except you don't want to do like I did and drop it off, but I bet you it's still inside there, but no, it's not. Well, that was a big time fail. Time to go to the bolt bin and get myself an extra nut, unless it fell down. It will be pulling the engine anyway, but that's what I get for trying to showboat. You know what else? I guess that's a good time to tell you why I don't like these kind of extensions and I do like these kind of extensions. Most of the time, 99% of the time practically, you can use this style of locking extension and you don't have to worry about the drama that you just saw unfold. Because not only do you have to worry about losing your super unique, zoom here, Matco 10 millimeter, but also the fastener will probably stay inside the middle. So we just stick it back here and this other one and these two back here with the 10 millimeters, those are studs. The rest of these, we have 5 on the top and 4 on the bottom, but the two middle ones are T30s. Now you see, it works a lot better when you're installing it, and I'll show you, if I do an install video, I'll show you then. But whenever you take them out, the best case really is, see it's just hanging there, so you can just take a magnet and just pull it off with a magnet. But this is pretty risky if you try to stick your fingers in there because you can easily drop it. Now I have this long bit right here, and we're gonna see if this can get all of them. We're gonna just go ahead and zip all these straight out. This should be the last step. This one right here is a little bit tricky, but not with my long bit. And then we have the two on the bottom. And we get a view right through that window. Not a very good one. Let's see if we can, it's just straight back, right? There's the view. And then same with that one. That one's easier to see, but we'll go on top. Nope, we have to go on bottom. Now it should come straight off. We'll you have to give it a pull, give it a pull. What's holding it on? Give it a good look. on this one we have to pull these connectors out. So it probably would have been smart just go ahead and take those two top. I don't take these off very often. What's stuck? What is it? We'll put that over on a safe spot, and then what we had is we were fighting, it was trying to, let's pull this pressure sensor out. Because we can keep that rail there. Unclip this right here. This is your for your intake flap changeover. You got flaps right here. And then give me a break. I'm holding the camera with one hand. I'm looking through the viewfinder and I'm trying to work with the other hand, and I'm trying to talk to you. All I had to do was, and I don't typically work on these newer ones. The older ones are cheaper, but I do buy these whenever I get a chance. I've got, look, I got an engine right there. I got another one on the other side. I've got other stuff. I've had more than a few dozen of those things apart, trust me. But the majority of my work is with the plastic manifold type engines just because those are cheaper right now. Do I have to explain myself again? Anyway, this intake runner, you simply had to push it up a little bit to clear this union right here, this nut union for the fuel. And then there's one more wire connector right here, and we can just keep this, keep this wiring all together. We didn't need to take this clip out. If you'll notice, there's, you're either going to need to replace these, which most people would recommend, but I don't. I mean, I think these are fine. I've never had a problem reusing these O-rings, and people are going to not be happy with me saying that either. But let me just say, pay attention to it. One's missing. We're going to pull it off the intake manifold while we're thinking about it, and we're just going to go ahead and keep them all together right there. Now we're going to go ahead and take our panel clip pliers and pop this off right here, and then move this intake runner out of the way after we disconnect intake runner position sensor. Just pull this straight back, unclip it straight back. Now let's take a look at the carbon. Yeah, a little bit. Get 124,000 miles on this cylinder. Well, I don't know how many miles are on this cylinder head actually. I'm pretty sure it's 120,000 miles. I've been told if you don't put these back in, those intake runner flaps I pulled out, that it can cause misfires. I was told that by the technical field manager. So that's probably pretty accurate, because that guy was a genius. And these right here, just two T30s. All the fuel injectors are still connected. The wiring harness is with that rail. So let's go ahead and zip these two T30s out and see if we can't get the fuel injectors out without having them stuck in the cylinder head. Will that be possible? Now, if I wanted to, I could just go like this and pull straight back. Should I show you what happens? If I pull straight back, all of those fuel injectors are probably going to be stuck in the cylinder head. You know what I'm talking about? Probably not. If I can, what I like to do is take a small pry bar and put it, there's a solid piece. I'll show it once I pop these things out if I can. I don't even know if I can. Can I get the camera back here? I'll give it a, I don't really have the right fulcrum spot on this one right here. I might go try to, oh, there we go. Did you see it push out? And we're gonna try to do that right here as well. See, there's no fulcrum spot. I'm bottomed out. Can I get behind it? No, I can't really get behind it right there. I'm limited from my tool on this one. Let me see if I can't get behind this one. I'm pretty much limited. Well, nope, I just popped that one out pretty good. Let me see if I can't come back to this one and do something. I'm feeling like, yeah. Now I just got this last one right here. If I can just give it a little helper. Now we're gonna pull the rail out. All 4 injectors are with the rail. Let me know if you want a reinstallation video. And subscribe to Naptown Tuner, please. I'm trying to get myself some ad revenue income so I can give you more content and videos. So help me out with a subscription. That would help.